A very good evening to everyone here. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce to you our guest speaker for the evening, Mr. Sudarshan Mandyam Narasivadiyu. He has kindly agreed to share with us his knowledge on how to use the ISMS Information Security Management System experience for conducting a data privacy impact assessment. Mr. Sudarshan Mandyam is an electrical engineer from BMS College of Engineering. Over a period of 47 years, he has worked in the public sector, private sector, as well as the central government. He has worked for 5 certification bodies: BIAS, Bureau of Indian Standards, BSI, British Standards Institution, TUV-SUD, also known as Technical Inspection Association, SII Global, Australian Standards Information and Compliance Organization, ISC Worldwide, which is now renamed as CPG, that is Certification Partner Global. He's also an entrepreneur and has managed a franchisee of CPG in Dubai. Mr. Sudarshan has been a volunteer for ISSCA for over 30 years now and has received the ISSCA Chennai chapter's Lifetime Contribution Award in 2019. He was a member of the first batch from India who passed the CISA exam in 1990. Mr. Sudarshan has worked across various industries and sectors wherein he was involved in IT audits, quality framework and IT process implementation and auditing, designing and delivery of accredited lead auditor courses, global program management of IT-related audit and training services. He has led several teams of auditors to certify organizations for PIMS based on ISO ISC 27701 2019. He is the global program manager for PIMS. Training design is his passion, and he has trained over 100 professionals in several countries for a dual qualification of accredited GDPR and PIMS-led auditor. Now I request Mr. Sudarshan Mandyam to share his knowledge with us.
Thank you, Suman, for the nice introduction. Good evening to all of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
My first experience with privacy was way back in the year 2003 when I was working for BSI, one BPO company. I think I went to Pune that time. Ultimately, that company was taken over by Wipro. So they wanted some sort of a certificate, Data Protection Act. I said yes without knowing that can only be a report. So then we negotiated. I started to work. Then I engaged a specialist, a lawyer from Mumbai, to come with me. Then we did some thing. At that time, it was similar to our ISMS. Then it was more about awareness about DPA. Okay. Then we did find. Then I had a technical specialist to look after the data downloading. Data was not allowed to be downloaded in India. It has to be in UK only. So those conditions inquired, and that was the limit of that. Over a period of say around 20 years now, the subject has matured. There are other privacy, some act of US, where if you have a loan, you cannot call them before 8, or you cannot call their family members. Husband had taken a loan, and you cannot call a wife and then ask for the loan. So some, you cannot send a postcard, which is public one. It has to be a closed cover. Some rules are there. I have forgotten the name of that rule. So there are several privacy. Then HIPAA awareness I used to do, way back in 2003, 2004. It was just an awareness one. What we did yesterday was actually a full HIPAA audit, including all the controls under clause 168 onwards. So now the subject has matured. We have also learned a lot. But the problem in the industry is there is too much of a hype about the effort required to do a GDPR project or a PMS project, or even to do the data protection impact assessment. I have received proposals for 6 months. And I have received proposal for about 15 days just to do a gap assessment, saying that where they are. No, it's really crazy the way it's going on. I have audited. My experience is mostly in auditing rather than implementation. I'm not saying that it's easy. Definitely, there is some effort required, but there's no need to create so much of a hype. In my opinion, anyone with a good experience in ISMS should be able to manage a data protection impact assessment comfortably. Okay. The purpose of this session is, the success of this session is just one of you, there are 28 participants. Even if one of you start, if you have not done DPA at all, if you start the work tomorrow using this simple technique, that will be a very good indicator of some sort of an outcome from this session. You should be able to do that. It's not for those who are experienced. It's not for those who have access to the tools. There's so many tools like OneTrust is there, then privacy.ai, then Nimity. There are quite a few popular tools. There are about 1,000 tools. If you have access to that, then this looks very silly. Okay, I'm not talking about those tools. They are there. They are good. They're also expensive and then quite complicated to maintain. Sometimes the person who is maintaining it will become a risk to the company, and then there won't be a backup plan to continue with the DPIA. No? So this particular method, what I'm suggesting is from books that are standard, which are available in the public domain. Of course, a little bit expensive, but I'm going to give you some extract. Up to 10% we can extract from any standard and then give it to the public. Now I'm going to share some 10% of the standard that I'm talking about, so that you can actually use it from tomorrow onwards. Okay. So we have to have some sort of a background about the jargon. PII means personally identifiable information. DPA, it is data protection impact assessment. I'm wondering why did they not call it as information privacy impact assessment. The word data and information is used somewhat loosely, in the standard as well as the scheme. Okay, let us not debate. When we started our IT way back in the 80s, we used to say any process data is information. Now, that meaning may not be suitable for this subject. Let's say that data and information are equivalent one. The other one is the standard 27701 uses the word PII principle. Okay, so whereas GDPR uses the word data subject. So they're all equivalent words. So this topic today is for all the subjects. It could be DPA Act 2018 of UK, it could be GDPR, could be your PDPP or Singapore or anything where you have to do an impact assessment. The issue here is GDPR is a wonderful document. It does not give you details on how to conduct a DPIA. You have to fall back on something else. If you go to 27 ISMS, it doesn't give you enough information. But when it comes to technical and organizational controls, you have to depend on something. So ISMS is not the best one, but the best starting point to implement a technical and organizational control. So DPIA cannot be implemented without something, but mostly people use ISMS. So there's a lot of relationship between ISMS and then DPIA. So it is better to use the ISMS experience, which is the most popular one, to implement a privacy framework. So if you look at the background of ISMS, there is a clause, the 6.1.2. I'm focusing only on the risk assessment and comparing it with the DPIA. Identify the information security risk. I'm sorry about the typo. It should be identify the information security risk. I'm going to share the same document with you. The 3 documents are there, all Word documents. Identify risk, it says. Then it says apply the information security risk assessment process to identify risk associated with the loss of confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information within the scope of the ISMS. Okay. So it talks about the loss of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. That those details are not given in the standard 27001. The other requirement is analyze the information security risk, assess the potential consequences that would result if the risk identified were to materialize. So there is a word risk, there is a word consequences, there is another word which is impact, which is used in the industry. So in my notes, what I've done is, let us not debate whether risk is the correct word or the consequence is the correct word or the impact. A highly knowledgeable person, somebody with a PhD, can always debate, you're wrong, this thing. So let us not debate. I'm taking these 3 words as equivalents: the risk, the consequences, and the impact. You can debate with others later, but here the purpose of this session is to learn how to use the ISMS experience. So let us take all the 3 as equivalents. What you have to understand is, it talks about confidentiality, integrity, availability, the impact on those things. It also talks about potential consequences. Okay, that would, if the risk were to materialize. If you look at the set of standard, 27,000 family has about 40 to 50 standards. One of them is known as 27005, which is about ISMS risk assessment, which is mainly based on the generic risk assessment standard 31,000. Okay, this is a customized one for, I think it was released in 2018, the latest version. I took part in writing this way back in 2005. At that time, I had a chance to take part in the committee work. Later on, now I'm not done any work in the 18 version. You should understand that threat alone is not a risk. Vulnerability alone is not a risk. Only when a threat exploits a vulnerability, sorry about that typo, then it becomes a risk. Okay. In the standard 27005, which is the latest 2018 version, Annexure C has a list of threats and a list of origin of threat. For example, hacker is given, and then the motivation, what motivates him to attack, then possible consequences. But analyzing threats alone is not useful. Based on analyzing consequences, it's not a correct one. Annexure D has a list of how each threat exploits a vulnerability. So I focus more on Annexure D, where you find these are given in the standard. A type of asset, what is the example vulnerability, what is the example threat. What I have added as value is the corresponding control from Annexure A. If you copy any standard blindly, it's a copyright violation. If you add some value like this, like connecting, which is the control, then you can also have some column where you can have another control, like Reserve Bank of India control. Maybe it is a control from SWIFT guidelines. It could be our cybersecurity guidelines, or it could be any other thing. So that is a provision for adding additional controls in our statement of applicability. So that's the provision is there in ISMS. This is all about ISMS in the beginning. Later on, we'll see how we can translate it to DPIA. And this is given here, for example, hardware. Okay, so there is a lack of efficient configuration change control, particularly about the operating system. Error in use is the threat. So corresponding one is 12.1.2 about operations, IT operations is there. Sensitivity to electromagnetic or your humidity is dust soiling, dust corrosion is the threat. So 11.1.4 is the control. This is the one where you can use it for ISMS risk assessment. Similarly, there is something for software. So I'm going to share this entire list with you. There is nothing original except the column where I have linked it to the specific control. That is my original work here. I have given you the full list here. You can go through it later on. You must understand that there is a facility in the standard 27005. They have defined what is the threat and the vulnerability combination. So then it becomes a risk. If you look at another annexure, which is Annexure C, it talks about possible consequences. I have renamed the word consequences as impact, which is a common term used. You can also call it as a risk. We see every day we see different risks. And then I classified them as confidentiality, integrity, availability. That's all I did. It was a single column. I just split it into 3 columns. So suit our ISMS risk register. What is the impact on confidentiality, integrity, and availability? I wanted to highlight. So it's about social engineering, hacking, impersonation. These are all about confidentiality. Integrity is about system tampering, okay? Input of falsified data, those things like that. Availability, what happens if there is a bomb or a terrorism, denial, distributed denial of service attack, okay? Assault an employee is not able to work. These are the availability part. You can always change it if you, this is not something given in the standard, this is my analysis of this, but the terms are given in the standard, okay? So this is about the ISMS part. Then we move on to the corresponding one, which is the 29134. So there is a base available in ISMS 2705. We should not ignore that. We should try to use that as much as possible because it's also relevant for DPIA. 2705, unfortunately, has all the types of assets but does not have data. It has hardware, it has software. So if you look at the previous screen that we had, it talks about hardware, it talks about software. Then it talks about network, it talks about personnel, people, talks about site, talks about organization policies and procedure. It doesn't have anything called data. That's unfortunate. Okay, now you must remember that directly 2705 does not have an answer for doing a DPIA. Now, there is another standard which is called 29134, which was released in 2017. Okay, and then the privacy standard 27001 was released in 2019. Okay, So there is a link to that. We'll see that later. 2017, they released this. They said, if you want to do privacy impact assessment, first point is analyze the data. So in the data life cycle, there are 5 stages, which is defined by them. If you study CCSP or CISSP, they'll say there are 6 stages. Let us not debate. You can use 6 stages if you are comfortable with that subject. You must understand the data life cycle, which we normally don't do. There are two main differences between ISMS risk assessment and then a DPIA. In ISMS, we normally think about the company or the organization. Within that, there is HR department or legal department, employees of other departments, software development, testing. It's all within the company. The moment it comes to DPIA, we must also look at the data subject, or what is known as the PII principle in 2001. We have to go outside the organization. We have to think about the reporting authority, who is the information commissioner or privacy commissioner. So the one about, these are the 2 main differences I find between ISMS and DPIA. Okay. Then you have to analyze it further. So you can always have, we find that most of the consultants do have information listed as an asset, that there are paper assets listed in ISMS, but it just goes by that. It is possible to use that paper assets idea and expand it further. So analyze the various data cycle. For example, collection, from where you collection, you collect from the PII principle or what is known as the data subject. User is a registration. Okay. Then there is a controller. He collects it. Then sometimes third-party people provide privacy information. And then the processor stores it. And of course, use it. All of them use it. The principal, the controller, and then processor for various purposes. Then you transfer sometimes from the controller to the processor or the other way. Processor to the controller. Okay. And then finally, you have to delete. Either the processor or the controller also delete. You have to look at the various stages of the data life cycle. It's not just one paper asset. So if you are able to, from ISMS register, if you are able to do further analysis of the data life cycle, then using any method, okay, by interviewing people, find out what is the status of that information. Do they transfer it, they use it, they create it, okay, or they just collect it? Okay. So I think the standard 2934, it talks about supporting assets. So 2934 also is similar to ISMS in terms of the risk assessment or impact assessment. It talks about user provided hardware and software, smartphones, tablets, hardware, computers, communication relays, USB drives, hard drives, software, operating system, messaging, databases. So you cannot ignore, just because it is DPIA, you cannot ignore the traditional ISMS list of assets. They are also required for DPIA, computer channels, cable, wireless, fiber optic, individuals, that means people asset, what you call as people assets in ISMS, users, administrator, top management, that's also required. Paper documents, printing, photocopying, of course, the entire life cycle, you have to analyze. And then in terms of actions, means the risks that risk sources can do. Okay, what do you call it? Here they call it as action. So a lot of jargon, you have to get used to it. Okay. One is abnormal use. Okay. The other one is damage, then espionage, loss, modification or change, or overload. These are the only things. So if you look at ISMS, it has a long list of about 30 to 35 risks. Here, it's only about talking about these 6 items of actions, what is equivalent to a risk, you can say that. Now, if you look at the standard, in 2005, we saw there is an action which gives you a combination. Only threat is not a risk and only vulnerability is not a risk. Only when they combine, it becomes a risk. So that combination is given in 2005. That combination is not given in 29134. It does not have a combination of threat and vulnerability. It does not even use the word vulnerability. Okay. Now, in addition to that, 29134 does not have a list of controls by itself. It was written in 2017. The new standard was 2701-2019. It has a list of controls separately. Annexure A for controllers. Okay. Then 31 controls and Annexure B, 18 controls for the processor, plus the traditional 114 controls. So If you want to implement 2705 and do a DPIA, you should have ISMS in place. So it will be 114 plus 31 plus 18, no, 163 controls. That will be the number of controls applicable for DPIA. You will have a choice of 160 controls to select. So the standard 2934 does not directly give it. So you should make a combination of 2705, 29134 and 27701 to have a DPIA completed. There are generic threats. It has 4 columns. What is the asset? What is the action? Means risk. What is the privacy risk? Action means you can call it as equal to a threat. Or the privacy risk, or we call it as a privacy impact. Okay. As I said, the consequence, risk, and impact, they are loosely worded in many of the standards. Let us take them as equivalent, and then there are example threats. They are given here. Okay. The word action and example threat, I'm not sure why they made it, or this is there given in the DPIA standard. Okay. So it gives an example of how to do a DPIA. For example, hardware. There will be a loss. Risk will be disappear of PII, theft of a laptop or cell phone, disposal of a device or hardware. That is one sample given. As an example for software, abnormal use, unwanted changes in the PII, unwanted modification to data in databases, erasure of files required for software to run properly, or operator errors that modify data. About the software, how it impacts DPIA. Next one is computer channels, I mean the transmission channels. One action is overload. Okay, so you can call it some sort of an impact. No, disappearance of PII is the risk, misuse of bandwidth, unauthorized downloading, loss of internet connection, etc. Paper documents also analyzed here. The impact is the loss, illegitimate access to the PII because of theft of files from offices, theft of mail from mailboxes, or retrieval of discarded documents. These are the examples given. Okay. Paper transmission channels, when you are transmitting paper from one place to another, one of them is spying. No? Illegitimate access is the one. You can see that this is repeated. So there are only some 6 types of risk. We saw that earlier. Reading of signature books in circulation, reproduction of documents in transit. He asks someone go and make a photocopy, only 1 copy. So he makes 2 copies. What do you do? So that type of risk, privacy risk is there. Okay. Now I'll just show you one particular
Mr. Sudarshan, you might have to probably share that document, yeah?
Yeah. So one particular one, this is about the 29134.
It's not, you're not shared the document with us.
Okay.
It's showing our Word document, which you have shared earlier.
I one shared and shared now. Okay.
Sure,
now,
sir, sure.
Now it's visible?
Yeah, perfectly fine. Thank you.
Now, this is the actual one. I showed you only an extract. This shows about how to do a DPIA. It talks about a hardware, then abnormal action, disable the PII. Okay, action could be equivalent to an impact, say that. Then there are certain threats given. For example, flooding, fire, vandalism, damage. These are all, even in ISMS, they are there. This one, watching a person's screen without them knowing while on the train, taking a photo of a screen, particularly nowadays in our work from home environment. You give all the controls, no? You give a laptop or a PC with all the controls, but what happens? There is a smartphone, camera is already there. They take, now I understand, yesterday's audit, they were saying there is a tool which will even caution you. There is an alert if one of the employees takes a picture of the screen in front. So, of course, technology will be there, but so there's a new risk for them. It can affect even privacy. So that was about a healthcare BPO, definitely privacy, PHA data or the ePHA data. So they were discussing that. So geolocation of hardware, remote detection of electromagnetic signals. These are the ones. Okay. Of course, another one is theft of a laptop or cell phone, disposal of device or hardware. At that time also it could be leaked out, the PII information. Then modification, addition of incompatible hardware resulting in malfunction. This is also one of them, which is common to ISMS and the same. Poor disposal of maintenance agreements may result in unauthorized access of PII. It's a asset is a hardware. Similarly, about software, there are quite a few. Erasure of a running executable or a source code, logic bomb, that can also affect privacy. Collection of configuration data, analysis of source codes in order to exploit flaws, okay, testing of how databases respond to malicious queries. There also they can be stealing some privacy information, PII data. Okay. Then about availability it affects. Then it's about computer channels, right? Cutting wire. Now, these are all the hardware issues. Interception of Ethernet traffic, acquisition of data sent over a Wi-Fi network. These are all the threats for even privacy. Okay. Okay. Occupational disease or injury, that is also there. Unintended disclosure of information while talking. Use of listening devices to eavesdrop on meetings. Okay. Then employee poaching, that can also affect PII data. Assignment of employees to tasks beyond their abilities, poor research skills. These are all generic ones. Okay. Aging of archived documents, burning of files. At that time also, you have to be careful. Then there is something about paper transmission. Reading of signature books in circulation. We already saw that in the example. Elimination of a process following a reorganization. Maybe there's a merger. Change in how mail is shipped. That is another one. Changes to a mail without the author's knowledge. Okay? Then mail overload, overburden violation process. These are the examples given in the standard 29134. That's for mainly impact assessment, privacy impact assessment. Let's come back to I think I have to stop.
And share again, sir.
Yeah.
Sure.
Now can you see the original document of
29134.
you are seeing that, is it? Okay.
Correct. 2017.
Okay, stop sharing. Okay.
Yeah. Probably you may share your desktop or screen one.
Okay. Now we come back to this document which we are discussing, the second document about 29134. We had reached here. Okay. Now, if you look at the way risk assessment is done for ISMS and then the data protection, data privacy impact has been done, okay, then there is a lot of similarity, except that in case of paper asset or information asset, you have to think of this data life cycle. Do more in-depth analysis of paper documents and information assets. In an ISMS register, you have to add more rows to the general ISMS register. They don't need to have a separate register for DPIA. We have done probably about 15 audits in about 5 countries so far. We have always seen a single register for ISMS risk as well as DPIA risk. And it's good as long as you have additional rows and then analyze all these different phases of the life cycle, whether it is with the principal or the controller or the processor or a third party. If you can do that analysis, maybe you can have one more column in the ISMS risk is there, but with whom is the data in its cycle? It is being collected or created or stored or used or transferred or deleted. Okay. So the life cycle model, you find either 5 or 6 cycles mentioned. So you can adopt any method as long as you know that you should go into more details. In an ISMS risk register, you should go into more details than what to do in a normal ISMS, particularly when you want to do DPIA using the experience and the register of ISMS. There is no need to create a new one. So of course, if you are working for a very large organization, you need to have a tool and then it has its own template. I agree, those are all professional way of doing them. This method is good for someone who is working for companies like us. We are auditing employees from 5 to 100. Even consultant, they work, employees 5 to 100, they do consulting. It is for those people who want to start their journey in DPIA. Okay? This session is about that. They're only supporting assets are there. It is similar to our ISMS paper documents, except that you have to go into detail. And then the threats here, they're only given 6 types. As you say, impact, I will call it 6 types of impact. Whereas when you went to the ISMS part, instead of 6, we saw so many impacts. So is there any harm in utilizing this one? There's no harm. Actually, you can always use this list of maybe around 25 to 30 impact, and then see how many of them are really relevant for a DPIA analysis. Okay, that is also possible. You can expand your list of impact. Otherwise, this particular document, which is 29134, gives just 6 types of impacts. Okay, then it is almost similar to that. You remember these 3 standards, which will help you. Remember also the limitations. 29134 does not give you a list of controls. So you have to depend on 27701, which has list of 163 controls, and 114 are similar to the ISMS ones. Only 31 plus 18, 49 controls are additional. You can use them. When you prepare ISMS, you have an SOA of 114 controls. When you prepare, you have to prepare a separate ISMS. So there are surprises when we go and do the SOA of PIMS. They still use control numbers like A.12.1.3, A.14.2.1. So like that. So sometimes they forget, though the actual reference is in clause 5.0 and 6.1 for Annex Array controls. 5 is for the general clauses of ISMS 4 to 10, 6 is for the Annex Array clauses, 114. So you have to be very careful when you give a reference in the data impact assessment and the controls when you select, when you want to prepare a statement of applicability finally. You have to remember there is a new clause reference for the old subject of ISMS, 114 old controls. Okay. Class 4 to 10 also, they're old known controls on ISMS. So data protection, DPIA and then ISMS discussment, they live together. They're complementing each other. They no need to create a hype or they know to create a scare. They no need to get scared also. That is something new. The purpose of this session is to give you enough confidence to start doing the DPIA from tomorrow. Then it is not a complete solution, I agree, but it's a good starting point I'm giving you. So in summary, what I would like to say is then we'll have some question answer. In an ISMS project, the starting point is compiling the list of information assets. It's a normal practice to list even paper assets and data folders, files. Most of the, although it is not required in 27005, many of us do that. Most of the consultants whom we meet every day, they always do that in terms of list of assets. Then they start doing the asset-based risk assessment. If you want to do a service-based risk assessment, again, you can have a related assets. You can include paper assets. You can include files and folders. Analyze, because that will be normally the store one. If you are transmitting something, you can analyze that stage of the life cycle. Many other assets such as hardware, software, and computer channels, they're already there in ISMS. So there's a lot of similarities, there are a lot of things to learn and for ISMS. Moreover, ultimately, when you want to get certified, the 27001, it is not possible to get certified unless you have ISMS in place. Okay, so that way DPIA depends a lot on the ISMS risk assessment. There's a lot of correlation also. Okay, that's all I have to explain to you, that it is an effort, is a task which is possible to do with your ISMS experience. Okay, so that's from my side. Now we will open for questions. So any type of question. Anyone? Does it give you enough confidence to start doing the DPIA for those who have not done? Hello?
Yeah.
Sudarshan, this is Harish.
Yes, please.
Yeah, see, when we start this SOA for 27701,
Yes.
okay, can we keep this 27001 SOA, and what are the things that need to be added to that SOA?
That's correct, but the control reference will change. So you have to have a separate SOA of 163. You cannot combine these two.
Okay, to make it simple, we cannot combine two.
Yeah, you have to make it simple. You just copy the worksheet to the next worksheet.
Okay.
Same SOA, you can have a single worksheet, single file, single Excel file with 2 worksheets you can have.
Okay.
Or you can have 2 separate worksheet Excel sheets.
Mm-hmm.
When you create a second worksheet, you just copy this, but that will have only the control reference, which is A.5.1.1, A.6.1.1, 6.1.2. There you have to go and change it to clause 6.1.1, so 6.1.2. Like that you have to change. In the DPA, in the SOA for PIMS.
Mm-hmm.
You should not forget that. You have to give the reference of the standard 27001. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, there are only some 4 or 5 changes in between PIMS and for the general clauses 4 to 10. Normally in ISMS, you don't write the general clauses. There is no SOA for clause 4 to 10 if you have worked on ISMS. But in PIMS, you will have a reference of this clause 6. So the clause 6, which is a generic clause, and then there is annexure A and annexure B. So in PIMS, even the general clause, one of them is clause 6, that is required in the SOA.
Okay.
You may not write anything about clause 5, but at least clause 6, no, when you write controls, you just copy from ISMS, all the controls, justification, everything is there. But the control, it will be 8.5.1.1 will become 6.1.1.
Okay.
Like that, you have to reduce it by 3, that's all. Add 3. You have to reduce it by 3. Okay. In if 8.18 is there, no? 8.18 is in ISMS, and it will be 6.15. You can say that way, if you want to calculate, you reduce it by 3. No? That's how you give the reference in PIMS. That's a very simple formula to remember. In case you want to cross-check, no, is the control correct or not?
Okay.
So just reduce it by 3, no, from the ISMS control number, which is very popular. Reduce it by 3, then you will get a corresponding number from PIMS, but it will not be A. It will not be 8.6. It will be just plain 6.1.1. Whereas in ISMS, you write A dot something. In the PIMS SOA, for the same control, you don't write A. You just simply write 6.1.1. Then there is an annexure A. Then there it will be another A dot. It will starting from 7.1.1, 7.2.2. Okay, so in PIMS you will see the word 6.1.1 a long time, then 8.7.1.1, 8.7.1.2, like that you will find reference number. It has to have 163 rows. You cannot mix it with SOA. They have to be separate. The systems are different. Management systems are different.
Okay.
The controls are the same. Don't have to change.
Mm-hmm.
In PIMS, you will have some additional controls. For example, in media control, if you look at 8.8, which is talking about movement of media, there is a further additional control in PIMS that if you are sending it outside the company, you should also record to whom you are sending, which person has authorized, what are the information sent in that, was there any PII involved or not. That level of detail we don't need in ISMS. We don't go to that level of detail in ISMS. That is required in PIMS for the same control. Similarly, you have to send a notice to the information commissioner or the data protection authority. That is not there, no? All incidents you just report within the company in ISMS, but the moment it comes to PIMS, you have to think of the PII principle, or the data subject. You also think of the information commissioner or the data protection authority. These two are not there in ISMS. So those changes you have to remember. It's not that difficult once you remember, no, these small differences. Otherwise, it's exactly the same as your ISMS. Okay. So,
the question is, when they say 27701 is extension to 27001,
yes.
why can't I keep the same SOA? That is the.
Yeah, you same the SOA. SOA is there except for the control reference. If you give a control reference in PIMS as 8.7.1 for HR control, 8.7.1 has a different meaning in PIMS. That's about controller, no? Data with the controller. So
then I can only change the control reference column. Add one more.
That's correct. That's correct. It's better not to disturb the actual control except for some additional control like media, no?
Okay.
You will have. So that can be in the policies. When you write the SOA, you should not change it except for the control reference.
Yeah, one column add it for 27701 and.
No, you should replace it. You cannot have the ISMS control reference there.
Okay. Okay.
That will become a non-conformant because the reference standard is 27701.
Mm-hmm.
Example, I still said, no, it will be 6.8 for you, no? It will be 6.4 for you. When you talk about 8.7.1.1, the 8.7.1.1 in PIMS will be something referring to the controller aspect. If you write 7.1.1, actually it should be 6.4.1 in your PIMS.
Okay.
That should be the reference number. You have to replace the annexure A controls of ISMS with the generic control clause 6 of PIMS. Of course, you'll also have annexure controls of PIMS later. Those are additional controls. After 114, you will have 115, 116, 117, like that you go up to 163. So the PIMS spreadsheet will be 163 rows. So you can have a single file, Excel file with 2 worksheets, or you can go for two separate files, one for ISMS and then one for PIMS. That's up to you. Okay.
Okay.
The standard doesn't cannot dictate management styles, no, how you want to manage. That's up to you. As long as you understand that the control is the same, only the control reference is different in PIMS. Okay.
Thank you.
And does it answer your question?
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone who wants to start doing DPIA? You have not done at all. Any volunteer? Huh? I'll support you from tomorrow if you want to start. Okay.
Sir, one question. This is Reena.
Yes, please.
This risk register which you spoke about for information security risks.
Yes.
Do you consider the risks related to PII as a subset of this, and we should include data protection specific risks under the ISMS umbrella at the organization level?
Yes, correct. It depends on the SOA. There is a control A.18.1.4 applicable legislation. If you have ticked that box saying applicable, then you have a valid reason to include all the PII controls.
Okay. Yeah, we have to go by the applicability. Yes.
Yes, but if you try to mix it under 18.1.4, you try to list all the say additional controls, no, 31 plus 18, all the additional 49 controls under the SOA. You're dealing with auditors. We are not that brilliant, or we are all we have what you call the inch deep and mile wide people. We have inch deep knowledge about everything. You talk about Azure, you talk about AWS, you talk about rocket science, you talk about manufacturing. We'll always say something about it. We are all inch deep and mile wide people. No.
Correct.
The person who sees more than 114 rows, blindly he will raise a non-conformance. So you have to understand with whom you are talking. Ultimately, whatever you do for somebody, either a customer to read or an auditor to review, ultimately you write for somebody else. So there you have to be careful. So you can have it after row 114. You can put a remark there under 18.1.14. Sorry, 1.4. And then after row 114, you can list the PII controls. It's a valid thing to do if you want to do that way. If you don't have an ISMS, PIMS in place, that's what you're asking me, no? If you don't want to go for a PIMS, but you still want to have the privacy controls in ISMS, the ISMS is a beautiful document. It's a very good concept. See, there's a lot of flexibility. The problem in the industry is we make it very rigid. I'm originally from BIS, Bureau of Indian Standards. We want to promote standards so that people can invent something new. Okay. That's the purpose of a standard, not to make it rigid, but unfortunately, as a community, I'm also part of the same community. We are making too much of documentation. Wherever I go, it is over implementation of ISMS, over implementation of privacy, and just to create revenue, And then we want more mandates for audit, they want more mandates for consultancy, more money. So there's a lot of unhealthy work going on, a lot of extra effort going on. I feel it's not necessary. I was observer in a gap assessment for 1 month, just to show that they're not done anything in DPIA. They're not done anything GDPR. Do you need 1 month or just 1 hour to tell them, no, you're not done anything? Still people make it as a project. Okay. And DPIA is definitely not a 1-year project. Okay. I've seen proposals for 1-year project of DPIA. At least most of the companies where we go, 5 to 100 employees. There could be situations where it requires 1 year. I'm not saying that. Then you can automate that. The automation tools should help you in speeding up. If you do it for 1 year, most likely the employee will leave with this experience and you will have to recruit a new person to actually get certified. That's the risk also if you do it too long. See, ideal way is to do it in about 4 to 6 months time so that the same group of people are available for when you face an audit, either from a certification body or a customer. Okay. So that hype we have to reduce in the industry. That's my appeal to you, all of you. Okay. Of course, you can always make money by saying that instead of 3 days, it will take 7 days, but not 1 year, for such a thing which is related to ISMS. And as Reena was saying, within ISMS, if you don't want to implement ISMS, there are ways to build in PIMS without calling it as PIMS. So that way, even the first one is about 18.1.1, identification. Even there, you can include many things. And then still you can include PCI DSS control, but you have to inform the auditor that we expect you to check all these things. So you'll ask for more mandates. there you have to be a bit transparent, no, with the customer or the auditor. As long as you document it properly, there's no need to actually build a separate PIMS. You can very well build it under ISMS, but you will not get a certificate for 27701 in that. So that you have to understand the limitation, because we go by the scheme document. Okay, we have to see the 163 rows if you want to certify someone for 27701. I think Rajesh should support, no, my views. Rajesh, what do you say? Huh? You have done a lot of audits, no? You're the first one to actually do it in India.
Yeah, yes, sir. In fact, you are right.
Pioneer, no?
Yes, I agree with you. In fact, we have done for Infosys, first time with, NABC activity. And, it was very, very clearly, two things, we always try to look at it about the applicability, about the scope and the legal requirement, and the controller and the processor role. That's all. Because the Infosys was certified on 27001, couple of years. So only the privacy related controls, they need to implement. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any other question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Bonda, please go ahead.
Sir, now this DPIA requirement is from a law.
Yes.
Like GDPR or upcoming PDPA, that mandates our organization to conduct a DPA, depending upon the statutes. Okay. So by adopting the ISO, ISMS or PMS, or we are able to meet the law requirement, legal requirement in fulfilling the DPIA.
No. When we build a PIMS, we are saying we are having a management system to obey the law.
Sorry.
We are not certifying. There is no certificate. Only now, last week I heard that our Data Information Commission Office UK and then our UCAS, they have come together to launch a scheme for that. Okay. There are, that's a different scheme. That's called a certification scheme for GDPR. It's a law, but our DPA Act, DPA UK Act 2018, now they are launching a scheme. I have to see the website. I just saw some update somewhere in our auditors group. Somebody said, no, there's a scheme. So I have to go and look at the website. That will be a formal certificate under 17065. All our PMS is under 17021 or 27006, no? Combination of that. So, so far it has not happened. For example, you have SOX compliance and then SOC 2 compliance. They're all acts, no? So there is no management system around that. So companies can give only an attestation report. Okay. HIPAA is an exception. HIPAA, we issue certificate after looking at the industry trend. HIPAA is an act as well as a set of controls. So you can call it as some sort of a management system. So HIPAA, you can definitely give some sort of a certificate, as a certification body. A BSI can issue or even BV.
Saying that the general controls of information security bill have been verified. That is a warning in the certificate, not the law provisions. So
no. ISO cannot get into a law certificate, unless there is a scheme like UCAS. UCAS is launching a scheme under ISO 17065 for some reason. If NABCB, then maybe JASANS and then ANAB, others start, then probably we can think of a certificate for GDPR or any of the law. So far, it has not happened in the industry. It is just last week news. We have to see how it is there. There is an equivalent in Cloud Security Alliance. They give a certificate for GDPR. The way they do it is they need a approved CPF firm, and then the CPF partner should have passed the CCSK exam at least.
Okay.
Then that person, that CPF firm can sign an attestation letter for GDPR, the CSA star level 2, which you are the pioneers, BSI. I used to work for BSI, remember?
Yes, sir.
That's where I learned all these things. 2002. Thanks to BSI, I'm confident in other certification bodies also. There is a CSA star level 2. What we do, we have also joined that band of CSA level star. The certification for level 2 certification for the management system part, for CCM and then CIQ. But now for the CCM, they are allowing a CPF firm, and one of the partners should have a CCSK qualification. Now there is a CCAK also. One of them you should pass. then he can write a letter of attestation that this company is following GDPR regulations based on CCM, because there is a column there, no? How each of the controls in CCM matches the which requirement of GDPR. They have done that mapping. Based on that, they give an attestation letter. It's not a certificate as such, but an attestation letter, no, from the CPA based on CSA star scheme. That's the only which I have come across for GDPR certificate. Whereas the UK one, which is coming up last week, it has come up is actually for GDPR. Sorry, UK and DPA UK Act 2018. That's the one. We have to see how the other European accreditation bodies, no, like you have this what is called RVA and others. We have to see how they are going to launch their own schemes. Even Japan's, I've not seen any one movement in that area. They only still talking about 27701 under 17021 only, or 2706. Under 17065, UCAS, they are the first one to do that. I don't know the reason. There must be some reason why they are taking it under product certification. They're calling it GDPR as a product certification. Anyway, so things will change. So far, it has not happened. Your question, I'm not the person to answer. No? Is it valid to certify a law? No, I don't know. I don't know, because it is the accreditation bodies which are thinking about it. First time in the history of last 35, 40 years, they're thinking about certifying using a product scheme to certify an act. They did not do it for HIPAA. They did not do it for any of the other acts. They did not do it for DPA Act 1998. Now, suddenly, for the same act, which was now, suddenly, where they did, because they see a demand here. Okay, there's a market demand. Therefore, otherwise, DPA Act 1998 was equally strong. I have done audits using that. Okay, we have to see how the things will shape. Okay, so it's possible that there will be a PIMS certification for the process part, and then there will be a GDPR certification for the act as such compliance. Okay, we have to see. We have to see the scheme. I'm not saying. Has anyone read that new scheme from UCAS come ICO? Rajesh, you are aware of that?
Yes, sir. Because it's a public forum, I cannot disclose because our competitors are also there. Yes, we are registered for that.
No. Have they started the scheme at all?
Yes, in fact, the reviews are under progress with you guys.
Oh, very good then. Okay, so there are parallel schemes available. I have yet to go through the website, but we are not accredited by UCAS. We are mostly with the other 8 accreditation bodies across the world, except UK. Okay, I have to find out, but definitely there are 2 parallel schemes running for any sort of a privacy act. One is about the act itself, which is something new, just started in UK. Other one is for the management system, which I think Jazans Australia, they're thinking of launching a scheme. The NABC was quite very quick to launch a scheme in India. Because we have the
sir, I would like to add actually, it was they were not, we were the only pioneer, and we only initiate the entire things, and we demonstrated that we have a competency in the privacy, because we were the only CB in the world that we were having our own technical standard. We compliance with management system 9001. And on that demonstration, they have given us the go ahead for that.
Okay.
Because our standard was freely available. Today also it is freely available on Bureau Veritas website, because we don't charge like any other standards and all that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Rajesh, for that feedback. So there are 3 options for those of you who want to, after doing the DPIA, how can you get your client certified? There are 3 options. One of them is the PIMS for either 27701 or Bureau of Indian Standard. They have launched their own standard. There is a meeting on 31st August. I can send the link to Shalini to send it to all the members. So those of you who want to research, it is free of charge. I happen to be in one of the committees of our LITD, for the ISO committee equivalent in India. So I happened to get that last week. So they're asking us to promote it, give it to all the other members. I'll pass it on to Shalini. So if you want to register, that is on the 31st of August, which will be a Tuesday. I think it's around 11 o'clock in the morning. It's a seminar on the new standard they have launched. It's a copy of 27701. So that scheme is always there in the Indian standard plus the ISO standard. Both will be there. The second option is to go to UCAS and then register as a certifying body under the 17065 scheme for GDPR certification. That will be a good market. And then the third one is, of course, the Cloud Security Alliance, CSA Star. It is there. Of course, I was auditing some banks and then software companies in Nigeria. Their Nigerian Data Protection Act compliance is compulsory. So they have appointed some compliance agencies. They come and audit. It's a detailed report. It's not a certificate. It's a compliance report. And that now only we'll see two types of certificate. One is the PIMS certificate or our ISO standard, Indian standard certificate. The other one is of course the compliance report, either from CSA Star or generic, for many of the local country agencies. Or third one is the Cloud Security Alliance, for CCM, mapping of GDPR. That is again an attestation letter from a CPA who has passed the CCSK exam. Okay, so three options are available. Of course, it's growing. It's growing. We are also surprised why so many people are there. Last 20 years, I've been watching this. We invested a lot and then we trained people and we didn't get any business in those days, 2003, 2004. And we dropped the whole idea of now again, there is some focus on that. It's not a new subject. It's not a difficult subject for those of you who are in SMS. And that's one I want to emphasize again. And then I still didn't get an answer. Is there anyone who has never done DPIA and wants to start? I can support you from tomorrow. I just need one volunteer after this session, so that we have some benefit out of this session for all the members. Any other question? Anyone? It's already 8 o'clock.
Yeah, one more question similar to that. See, in 27001,
yes.
we have risk register.
Yes.
Okay, so for when we are doing this privacy impact assessment,
yes,
can I use the same thing and put all the PIA risk identified there and do the treat?
That's correct. That's correct. What I suggested was in the same risk register, you have something called paper documents.
Okay.
Then you have the information asset, which are folders and files, important ones, like company's balance sheet will be a critical one, or the sales proposal from the customer. Sometimes those who do VAPT, the network diagram, these are all critical assets, which you have to protect. Similarly, in that you expand it to privacy information, expand it to 6 rows, like in CCSP and CISSP, they talk about create, in 6 stages of the data lifecycle. You create 6 rows and analyze each stage. Then with maybe 18 rows, with principal, with the controller, and then the data subject, which is the PII principal, and then control the processor. The 6 into 3, 18 rows you can create and start analyzing them. Some of the lines will be blank, so you delete them later. So it's better to use the ISMS risk register, add controls there, rather than going for a new template. It will be really confusing for the management. Most of the places, the CISO is also the DPO. Only if you are in Europe, probably you will pay for some fine. Otherwise, it should be okay, in India, for the same person to be DPO and then CISO. Okay. So most of the people are the same, and then even the risk, if you see hardware, software, everything is same. It is just that some of the privacy information is you have to go into more detail when you do risk assessment. It is better to use the same risk register and expand it based on the ideas I gave you, from 29134. Always. Otherwise, you have to have one software for ISMS risk assessment, another software for DPIA. That will be very difficult to manage. It's always better to integrate these two. Yeah.
Sudarshan sir, this Subbaradu here.
Yes, sir.
I like your offer of somebody who never done DPIA wants to do it for the first time. I'm basically a
I'm honest.
CPA.
I'm honest with you. I spent a lot of money.
I'm a CPA and a CISA, and I'm doing a lot of SOC certifications now. So I would like to explore this possibility of DPIA. Interests me. Maybe I'll
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, I'll support. Also, I'll support you in teaching you about CCSK, how to pass. I'll
yeah,
make
exactly.
you pass.
I recently took the CCAK grade and looking to pass that CCAK exam also. So is it necessary that you do CCSK first and then go to CCAK, or
not necessary? Not necessary.
Yeah.
But the CCSK is quite tough. Although it looks simple, it is tougher than even CCSP. They have 2 exams. Okay. So
we can I can get in touch with you offline for that.
I'll support you in getting both.
Sure.
We are searching for CPAs who also have CCSK qualification to do the attestation part.
Oh, wow.
It's a good market there. Yeah. Are you Bangalore based, sir?
Yeah, Bangalore based. Currently, I'm traveling in Hyderabad, but we'll back. I'm based in Bangalore.
We will connect on the net. I'll support you. In
And
80,
I have a CPA firm also I have a CPA
I'm not
firm
joking.
in Delaware.
The subject was not known. Security was not known in those days, 1980s.
Yes.
People know me. I've spent a lot of my personal money to promote this subject in 1980s, 90s.
Okay.
Now, of course, we have thousands of volunteers. I'm somewhat semi-retired. Okay. Otherwise, I'll support you.
I'll get in touch with you offline.
I mean it. I'm very serious about at least one person. No, I want you to learn how to do EPIA and also do CCSK. No, there's a good market. Okay, you can work for our competitors. No problem. No.
Yeah.
I'll support you. Okay, I'm promoting that in the industry. I've been like that probably since my younger days. Okay. Okay. When I made this offer, I'm pretty serious about it. Okay. At least one person is there now. I'm very happy. You know, this session is outcome is achieved now.
Definitely. It's a pleasure. My pleasure to be associated with you. Yeah.
Sir, Navi sir, you didn't say anything.
Navi sir?
It's quite. What
I
about
think Sudarshan sir, Navi sir has got some communication problem, I think.
Yeah, why don't you say something, Ramesh?
Yeah. Quite
It was on mute only. Okay, so I have got nothing to add. Experts from the field are speaking, and I have to only listen.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
But only thing I want to point out is, okay, DPIA from the ISO perspective and DPIA from the PIMS perspective need to be properly distinguished, I suppose. So maybe we have to look at the risk register and make some changes, I suppose, because
Correct.
It's
a good way to start.
It's a good way to start, but
I'm not denying that DPA name.
Yeah,
it should be same. I'm not denying. No, DPA can be separated, but it's confusing. Better to integrate them with the ISMS risk register.
A normal ISMS, objective is to get the information from the perspective of the business.
Yes.
The normal objective of a PIMS is to protect the information from the perspective of the data subject.
Yes.
Now, you can say that there is, of course, what protecting the data subject will protect the company from liabilities arising out of the data protection law liabilities. So, interrelated. But when we are doing the audit, sometimes it may be better to keep this focus so that the harm, when we calculate, when you look at for the risk purpose, is done more with the perspective of the data subject. That is the only point I would like.
Yes, sir. So they can add one column in the ISMS risk register.
Yeah.
That is possible. I still believe it is better to have them together, because wherever I go, no, it's always it also makes it easy to maintain the whole thing, risk and impact. No? If you are a large company, then it is better to separate them. Okay, because the people who are owners, no, like DPO will be separate and then CISO will be separate. There it is better to split them. The whole session was for small people, small companies, small consultants, no? Who want to use their ISMS experience.
Remember is ISO has also the objective of legal compliance.
Yes, it is there.
Legal compliance audit also has to have information security. So whichever is the leading methodology, the other will automatically follow. So ultimately, the company has to be compliant with both the ISMS objectives and PIMS objectives.
That's correct. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Team, any other question, anybody to Mr. Sudarshan?
methodology, which I think some people will find it useful to take it further from there.
Yeah. Okay. In case if there is no any question, let me take the privilege, and it's my honor to give the vote of thanks on this great occasion. Mr. Sudarshan sir, honestly, in the last 45 minutes to 50 minutes, you have shown your experience and expertise, making so-called DPIA, quite interesting, gave a new dimension, and probably I would say honestly that you might have cleared the fear from so many minds about this terminology.
Thank you very much.
I'm confident in making this statement. As you correctly started with your presentation, that people thinking about this as a kind of big event, no doubt about it. It's really a great thing, as we know that each and every law is requiring, expecting it to have, but people have made it so big that people really having a fear to go nearer to it. And I would say honestly, linking the 27,001, 27,002, 27,005, 29,134, beautifully giving the kind of real-time scenarios to us, and the confidence to us in making, linking the risk register, which we are all very confident. And hence I would say it's a great thing. I'm sure that the team in the call would agree with me, and would like to once again thank you very much for bringing this into a very simplest way. And I'm sure that the team would be really taking it with the kind of input what you had given in the 3-page document, and I'm sure it's going to help us, sir. Thank you very much once again on behalf of the team. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you all the members.
Great. Have a nice evening all. Thank you very much for joining. Yeah.
Thank you.